The Nissan GTR was introduced 10 years ago as a supercar killer, but since then prices have dropped significantly. In this video I'm therefore going to show you if prices already stabilized, and if so, for which models and which model years. Now this video is especially important to watch if you live in the US and you're either planning to purchase a GTR or you already own a Nissan GTR. The analysis I'm going to show you is namely based on the US market. By the way, for these type of analysis I often pick cars which are suggested to me in the comments. So make sure to comment for which car you would like to see the next analysis, to subscribe and to hit the notification bell so you know when the next video goes live. Now to answer the question if the price is already stabilized for the Nissan GTR, we're going to follow 4 simple steps. And in these 4 steps we're going to differentiate between the different models and also between the facelift and the pre-facelift versions. So in step number 1 I'll show you the average price points. In step number 2 I'll show you the depreciation per year. In step number 3 we're going to have a look to the depreciation per 1000 miles driven. And step number 4 we will do a relative value analysis to identify the cars which offer good value for money. I even show you the car which I personally think offers the best value for money. So definitely stick around till the end. And actually there's also still a step number 6, which is smashing that like button. Now let's start with step number 1, which was the average price point and the price distributions. That's shown in the graph which is popping up now on your screen. Now in the top figure we have a histogram for the price distribution in the market, and in the bottom figure we have a smoothed version of that histogram. On the horizontal axis of the histogram we have price, and on the vertical axis we have the number of cars available for sale for that given price point. You can see, for example, that there are 15 cars for sale with a price point of $60,000. Furthermore, you can see that there are 254 Nissan GTRs for sale and that the bottom of the market starts at $40,000. Now the top end of the market stretches up all the way till around $170,000. Now the average price point of course lays somewhere in the middle, and this is indicated by the dashed line which is going through the graph. This average price point is $86,000. Now if we split this graph between the facelift and the pre-facelift cars, we end up with the graph over here, where the pre-facelift cars are now displayed in blue and the facelifted cars are displayed in orange. You can see that there's a lot more orange than blue in the graph, indicating that the facelifted car was a lot more popular than the pre-facelift car. In fact, there are only 51 pre-facelift cars for sale and 203 facelift cars. Now the pre-facelift cars are a lot cheaper as they have an average price point of $60,000, whereas the facelifted cars have an average price point of $92,000. Hence, the premium for a facelift car is around $32,000. Now let me pull up the graph for the last categorization, the categorization per model type. Now this graph looks a bit different, but in essence works the same. We have on the horizontal axis the price and on the vertical axis the model types. We have from top to bottom the Black Edition, the Nismo, the Premium, the Standard car and finally the Track Edition. If we analyze the graph as a whole, we can see that the Premium, the Track Edition and the Standard car all have similar price ranges. It is of course also no surprise to see that the Nismo is priced at a significant premium over the other cars. Furthermore, we can see that the price range for the Black Edition cars is more concentrated towards the bottom end of the market. Now if we have a look to the individual model types, we can see that the Black Edition has the lowest average price point with an average price of $73,000. Furthermore, we can see that there are only 20 Black Edition cars for sale. Now if we have a look then to the Nismo, we can see that there are only 10 cars for sale and that they have an average price point of $135,000. Now the premium cars were the most popular as there are 180 cars for sale with an average price point of $83,000. Of the standard car, there are only 34 cars for sale with an average price point of $93,000. And then finally for the Track Edition cars, we can see that there are only 10 cars for sale with an average price point of $89,000. Since we now have a good understanding of the market and the average price points in the market, it's time to move on to step number 2, which is the depreciation per year. And that graph is popping up now on your screen. You can see that we have model year on the horizontal axis and price on the vertical axis. Furthermore, you can see that each car which is currently for sale is represented by a blue bubble and that the depreciation curve is displayed by the blue solid line going through the graph. Finally, you can see that there is a series of black axes for each model year in the graph, and these axes show the average price point for that given model year. You'll also see a blue shaded area which surrounds the depreciation curve. And this shaded area shows the forecasted value range with a probability of 75%. Now if we start to analyze this graph, we can see that the average depreciation per year is $5,400. However, we can also see that the depreciation curve is flattening out extremely nicely for the older model years. The depreciation for the model years older than 2013 is almost completely gone and therefore close to zero. Now this is in line with the forecasted value range, which shows that the average value for a 2009 car will lay between €57,500 and €64,000 1 year from now. Now to put this a bit more plain, if you buy a Nissan GTR with model year 2009, close to the average price point of €50,000, you can expect to not lose a dime on it in 1 year's time. Now if we zoom out a bit then again, we can see something else which is quite interesting. We can namely see that from model year 2009 till model year 2015, there's a very strong concentration of cars available for sale between $60,000 and $65,000. The depreciation curve is however turning upwards due to cars which are sold at $100,000 or more. Now when I digged a little bit deeper into this, I actually found that almost all of the cars listed under the depreciation curve are premium cars. But more about that later. Now if we split this depreciation curve between the facelift and the pre-facelift cars, just as we did with the price distributions, we end up with the plot over here. The facelift cars are now displayed in blue and the pre-facelift cars are displayed in orange. And it is of course no surprise that the depreciation curves are significantly different from each other. We can see for example that the average depreciation per year for a facelifted car is around $7,000 per year, whereas the pre-facelifted cars are only depreciating at a rate of $2,000 per year. Note however that there is only 3 years of data available to calculate the depreciation per year for the pre-facelift versions. Now this depreciation of $2,000 per year is therefore more an overestimation than an underestimation, as we saw in the previous graph that the depreciation per year for those model years was almost completely gone. Now if we split the depreciation curves by model type, we end up with the graph over here. Now at first this graph looks a bit daunting, but stay with me here. First we have in blue over here the Black Edition, then we have in orange over here the Nismos, in green we have the premium cars, in red we have the standard cars, and in purple finally we have the Track Edition cars. Now we can see that the depreciation per year for as well the pre-facelift and the facelift versions, split by model type, lays close to zero for the Black Edition, is around $4,500 per year for the standard cars, is $5,100 for the premium edition cars, a staggering $12,000 per year for the Track Edition cars. Now finally, we can see that the Nismos are depreciating at an insane rate of $15,570,000 per year. Now I also had a look to the depreciation curves for these model types, but then split even further by facelift and pre-facelift cars. This however didn't change any of the numbers significantly, so let's skip that one for now. Now that means it's time to move on to step number 3, which is the depreciation per 1,000 miles driven. Now that is shown in the graph over here, where we have the miles driven on the horizontal axis and the price on the vertical axis. We can of course see that the new cars are displayed at the 0 point on the miles axis, as they have of course 0 miles driven, and that there are also some second-hand cars for sale which have 100,000 miles driven or even more. If we look then to the depreciation curve, which shows the depreciation per 1,000 miles driven, we can see that this lays at €850 per 1,000 miles. And naturally, this curve flattens out for high mileage cars. Now if we split this depreciation curve again for the facelift and the pre-facelift cars, we end up with the graph over here. The facelift cars are now displayed in blue and the pre-facelift cars are displayed in orange, and we can see that there is of course a huge difference in depreciation per 1,000 miles driven. In fact, the depreciation per 1,000 miles driven for a facelift car is around $1,100, where it is only $240 for a pre-facelift car. Therefore, if you're planning to drive a lot with your car, it might be worthwhile considering a pre-facelift car instead of the facelift car. Now finally, to wrap up the depreciation per 1,000 miles, I also split the depreciation curve by model type. That is shown in the graph over here. And also here, there are no big surprises. In general, we can see that the newer the car and the more expensive the car was, the higher the depreciation per 1,000 miles driven. We can see that the Nismo and the Track Edition are depreciating the most at around $2,200 per 1,000 miles, followed by the Standard and the Premium Edition, which are depreciating at respectively €700 and €800 per 1,000 miles. And finally we have the Black Edition, which is depreciating at a rate of €126 per 1,000 miles driven. That means that it's now time to move on to the final step, step number 4, which is the relative value analysis. And this graph over here is going to help us with that. This graph namely shows the 3 most important things you need to consider when you want to buy a car which offers good value for money. The model year, the price, and the mileage. The model year is displayed on the horizontal axis and the price is displayed on the vertical axis. The mileage is displayed by the size of the bubbles, meaning that the larger the bubble, the more miles that specific car has driven. We can see first of all that there are a lot of cars with very few miles driven and very high prices. These are of course the Nismos and the Track Editions. Now we saw that these are still depreciating a lot per year and per 1000 miles driven, and therefore offer, relatively speaking, bad value for money. We will therefore omit these now. Furthermore, we can see that the cheapest cars in the graph are either standard editions or premium editions, and that they are from model year 2009 or model year 2010. Also, we can see that they have high mileages, as they range between 80 and 100,000 miles. Therefore, I would also steer away from them. Now that narrows down our search area between $55,000 and $65,000. In this price range you have the choice between a standard, a premium, a track edition or a black edition car. Furthermore, you can choose between a facelift and a pre-facelift car, and depending on the model type you can go for a high or a low mileage car. Now personally, I would be looking to a facelifted car because they have more power, an improved exterior and improved interior. After all, we can see that you can get a facelifted car with the same miles for the same price as a pre-facelifted car. Now we can see, for example, that this car over here offers good value for money. It is a facelift car with low mileage in the same price range as a pre-facelift car, and we also saw that the cars from this model year are almost not depreciating anymore. Alright, it's time for the last step, the conclusion. The Nissan GTR has been now in production for 10 years, and this definitely shows in the depreciation curve, as the depreciation curve is very mature. Now this means that the depreciation per year for the new model years is still very high, whilst the depreciation per year for the old model years is almost not existing anymore. Furthermore, the forecast showed us that if you buy a car from model year 2009, close to the average price point, it is likely that you won't lose any value on it in a 1 year time span. Hence, the depreciation curve bottomed out. We saw, however, that this didn't go for all model types and that there are a huge difference between the model types. Especially the Track Edition and the Nismo stand out from the crowd, as they are still depreciating at an average rate of $12,000 and $15,000 per year. Furthermore, we saw in the relative value analysis that if your budget can be between $55,000 and $65,000, you're really in the sweet spot in terms of cars which offer good value for money. Now we can finally answer the question with which we started the video. Did the prices of the Nissan GTR already stabilize? We can answer this question with a yes, but only for the older model years and only for certain model types. Now as a final remark, I need to add that you get a lot of car for the money. You get supercar performance for a price of a luxury saloon. It is however key to keep in mind that the maintenance cost can be excessively high for a GTR. If you're, by the way, planning to purchase a Nissan GTR, you might be also likely to consider a BMW M3 and a Porsche 911. You definitely then need to check out the depreciation analysis for those, and you can find the depreciation analysis for the BMW M3 over here and the one for the 911 over here. As always, thank you for watching. Remember to give the video a thumbs up if you like it and to smash the subscribe button. See you next time.